Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Crimson and in this video we are going to be starting our look through of our second codex, and that is the Adeppta Sororitas. So this is the Warhammer 40,000 Sororitas 10th edition codex, and I am really looking forward to getting into this book, so I'll keep the intro brief and we can just dive right in. So first off, on the cover we have this amazing picture of a canoness. You can see her with her braziers on her back, which is so cool. The skulls on it too. Very, this image almost just personifies the Sororitas as a whole in one picture. So yeah, there's also a couple of other people. There is a sister here wearing a robe, and it looks like that there is a war going on in the background. You can see that there are some demons flying around back here. So presumably there is a war going on between the Sororitas and some form of chaos spawn in the background. Really cool cover art for a codex, but let's get started. Now, actually, before we do get started, so if you have watched the first codex video, the Astra Militarum, I am going to kind of be following the same structure that I did for that video, where I will be reading most of the important parts and stuff to do with characters and the faction as a whole, but I won't be reading absolutely everything in this book. Same way I did with the Astra Militarum Codex, and I think that turned out pretty well, so that's how we are going to approach this one. So we start off, we have our Adeppta Sororitas, the Sisters of Battle. The Sisters of Battle is what they are commonly referred to as in both the Sisters of Battle are what they are referred to by like the Imperial Guard and standard citizens, as well as some people who play Warhammer in our world. But the Adeppta Sororitas is the official name of their order. And we also have a Rosarius here. This is the symbol of the Adeppta Sororitas. So, let us get in. So this is the table of contents, and before we go any further, I should probably just explain what the Adeppta Sororitas actually are, in case you are unfamiliar. So this is just a brief description just off the top of my head. So the Adeppta Sororitas, or otherwise known as the Sisters of Battle by some, are an all-female military force. They are the militant arm of the ecclesiarchy for the Imperium of Man, and are devoted to fighting both heretics and demons. They do also fight Xenos, but since they are a part of the ecclesiarchy, demons and heretics are their main targets. They are all extremely loyal to the Emperor and all that he stands for, and they are known, for example, for doing such things as defending holy relics, going on crusades, and essentially purging any heretics or non-believers wherever they pop up. So they are a really good faction. They have so much lore to them, and that's one of the reasons why I love them so much, and one of the reasons why I wanted to cover this codex. So I just thought that I would mention that just on the off chance that you are not familiar with this faction or Warhammer in general, just so you know what I'm talking about when I'm discussing some of the more intricate details of the Sororitas. So we start off here with a diorama piece of art. So we have the Sororitas battling some kind of either heretics or demons. I actually can't tell, it's too dark. But we have some of the elite units here, and some Where are they? There's some sisters here, I believe, and there's a piece of destroyed building in the background with the sun going through it. The sisters often fight in urban environments, which is really good. It also means that playing them on the tabletop, they actually have their own terrain, which I'm not sure what other factions do, but the specific terrain you can buy from Games Workshop specifically for the Sororitas, which is great. So, our first thing is this picture on the right. So this is a character called Canoness Viridian. She is one of the most notable canonesses in the Sororitas. The Canoness is a fairly high rank in the Sororitas. They are like sergeants or lieutenants in a standard military, so they kind of often are the commanding officer for your standard Sisters of Battle. And you see her here with her sword, with a battle raging in the background. You can actually get a miniature of her, which I think I have. If not, you can actually get a miniature of her. She doesn't do anything special compared to a standard canoness, but it is cool nonetheless of just having a named character in your army. I believe I actually have her, or the miniature of her, and if I do, I'll post a picture of it up on screen. If not, then I guess I am just mistaken. So, let's dive right into this text. So it says, the Warriors of the Faith. So, the Warriors of the Faith. The orders of the Adeppta Sororitas are the defenders of the imperial creed in the name of the God Emperor of mankind. Do they wage war of faith to bear witness to such a conflict is to be awestruck with the force of the sisterhood's righteous fervor and unwavering belief. As these holy warriors march to war, battle psalms ring out from consecrated voxcasters, the refrain taken up by each and every sister of battle. From the firmament, warriors equipped with winged jump packs descended on columns of fire to mete out the Emperor's judgment. The sisters go to battle with crafted war gear, tanks, and transports illuminated with sacred writings and bedecked with holy reliquaries. The battle sisters of the Adeppta Sororitas bear weapons synonymous with their imperial faith. The bolter, the flamer, and the melter form a holy trinity of destructive firepower with which to obliterate the faithless. The Emperor's blessing also accompanies the Adeppta Sororitas to war, his miraculous power manifesting itself in deeds of supernatural fortitude and divine strength. The faith is safe from the righteous wrath of the Adeppta Sororitas. All face the judgment of the God Emperor. So that's a great little introduction to just what these women are like on the battlefield. The sisters are absolutely relentless when it comes to their holy wars, and like it says here, the Holy Trinity is the bolter, the flamer, and the melter, showing that they will use every tool available to them and every weapon in their arsenal to achieve their goals. Really good introduction to the faction, and really just kind of sets the mood for them. So, next page. So here we have another picture of a battle going on with sisters seemingly fighting off something. I can't tell what, but there is a lot of fire. So I'm assuming based on that the sisters are winning. We have a sister here and here firing their bolters. Now, the Sororitas bolter is a little bit different than the Space Marine bolter. The ones that the Sororitas used are a bit weaker and a bit toned down, because the ones the Space Marines use would kill a standard human if they ever tried to fire it. The sisters themselves are slightly augmented and do wear power armor compared to the Imperial Guard, which is just essentially normal men and women in greatcoats and flak jackets. But even still, with the slight enhancements and power armor, the standard Space Marine bolter would absolutely wreak havoc on their bodies. And then over here we have a Ministorum priest. He is not a part of the Sororitas, however, he is a part of the ecclesiarchy. So sometimes priests do accompany them, either onto the battlefield or to join them on the transport ships to the battlefield. So we have a bit of text here that says, the matriarchs. In the dark centuries following the Horus heresy, the citizens of the Imperium turned to their faith for solace and comfort. Worship of the Emperor as a god of mankind prolificated across the entire galaxy. Throughout the Imperium, different sects of the Imperial Creed existed, including the infamous Daughters of the Emperor, who would later become the Adeppta Sororitas. So even all the way back to the Dark Centuries after the Horus Heresy essentially all but destroyed the Imperium, the Sororitas were essentially founded, or this was their beginning. They went by a different name, obviously, the Daughters of the Emperor, and were not nearly well armed, or as well armed and armored as they would become. But eventually, over time, they have become the Adeppta Sororitas and are now one of the most crucial parts of the Imperium's military. Moving on. So here we have a great shot of, I believe this is some kind of reliquary. I don't know why I said that weird, but I'm just going to leave that in. So this is one of the holy pieces that the sisters would protect, and that standard Imperial citizens would come to worship. And when I say come to worship, I mean people make massive pilgrimages throughout space to come and visit some of these holy relics, which just shows that they are dedicated, which is quite cool. So we can see that there's 6 figures in this one. I do not know what this relic actually is. I do apologize for that. But we have a bit of text up on the top here, and it says, the ecclesiarchy. To the teeming masses of humanity, there is no more important figure than the God Emperor. It is he who defends them against the galaxy's many abominations, and from whom they draw their strength. The galaxy spanning official religion that encompasses his worship in the Imperial Creed. So I'm not sure what this art is depicting. It looks like they are pilgrims making some kind of journey, maybe. I can't really tell. One thing that I really do like about the artwork for the Sororitas in general is, if you are a fan of kind of a Renaissance era or medieval ages era religious paintings or religious art of any kind, a lot of the Sororitas art is like that. So I personally enjoy those kinds of paintings and artwork. So seeing that in a fantasy universe with a faction that I adore, I really like it a lot. So it has a bit of text on the top, and it says, the Sisterhood of War. The orders militant of the Adeppta Sororitas are strictly organized and highly disciplined military organizations, created and outfitted to meet any threat to the imperial faith. They are elite forces whose members are amongst the most skilled of humanity's unnumbered warriors. Empowered by their faith, these pious combatants seek to purge the heretic and slaughter the alien wherever they appear, preserving the sanctity of the preserving the sanctity of the Emperor's realm. So a bit of information about how their military is actually structured, which is quite cool. And one thing I forgot to mention at the beginning of this video is that the Sororitas are actually prone to have supernatural events occur to them in the midst of battle. That is how strong that their faith is, that they are literally able to manifest divine blessings and divine intervention. Whether that be that, someone might get shot and it would be a lethal hit, whereas they are completely unharmed, or someone who just cannot die and is virtually immortal. There is one woman like that we will discuss much later if the book mentions her. But yeah, that's it for this page. Let us move on. Alright, let's continue. So next we have this amazing page. So this is the hierarchy of the Adeppta Sororitas. Now, I'm not going to be reading every single thing on here because I would be here all day. However, if you are interested, feel free to pause on this and have a look at some of the more finer details. So, we are going to start with what it says at the very top. Now, even though I am not going to be reading everything, there is still quite a lot of text to get through. So let us just begin. So at the very top, the hierarchy of the Adeppta Sororitas. The Adeppta Sororitas is organized in a way that allows it to exert the will of the ecclesiarchy across the breadth of the Imperium. Individual orders have spheres of influence in different parts of the galaxy, and through these orders have their own traditions and rites of worship. They are each bound by similar structures and chains of command. Some orders, notably the 6 orders majoris, maintain subsidiary sanctuaries, the largest of which are referred to as the preceptories. I hope I said that right. The term is also used to define the largest organizational unit on the order is ever likely to field, numbering up to 1,000 sisters of battle. Cloistered together at one location, the canoness who commands the preceptory has the title of canoness preceptor. Then over here it says a militant order typically maintained its own fleets of orbital assault vessels and macro landers, but larger battleships and interstellar transport are seconded from the Navis Imperialis, which is the Imperial Navy. These ships may be assigned to an order for decades or even centuries, but are still officially not part of the ecclesiarchal military. Really cool information there. And I do apologize if I am sounding strange as I read this. It's just extremely difficult to see with the lighting in the room that I'm in right now. So starting on the left page, we have some of the hierarchies. So we see that the top hierarchy, the commandery assets are the Sisters Dialogus, the Hospitaller, a battle tank squadron, missionaries, a preacher congregations, ecclesiarchy battle conclaves, crusaders, and acroflagellants and penitent engines. And then below that, we have some of the vehicles. I'm not going to be reading through all of them. And yeah, so like I said, I'm not going to be reading every single thing in here, but feel free to pause it if you would like to know more. On the right-hand page, so we start off at the top with the God Emperor of Mankind, which makes sense. Then under him is the Abbess Sanctorum of the Adeppta Sororitas. Then under her we have the Prioress. The order of the Adeppta Sororitas are divided amongst the convent Prioress based on Terra, and the Covenant Sanctorum based on Ophelia 7. Each convent is commanded by a prioress, outranked only by the Abbess Sanctorum of the Adeppta Sororitas. Then under that we have the Order's Command. So these include the Canoness Superiors. Then under that we have the Order Command. So we have the Canoness Superior, who is the Order Commander, and the Order Command Squad, and this is an Imager and a Celestian Bodyguard. Then we have a couple more bits coming off of this massive tree. And then at the very bottom we have some more information about the ecclesiarchy. So it says the Adeppta Sororitas as a whole serves at the behest of the ecclesiarch and has a sacred duty to follow the dictates of whoever holds that office. Really, really nice. So we have the Adeppta Sororitas, and this branches into two different strings. So the left-hand string starts with the Convent Sanctorum, and then under that we have a couple different orders. We have the Order Militant, the Order Hospitaller, the Order Familialis, I hope I'm saying that correctly, and the Order Dialogus. And then on the right hand side we have the Convent Prioress again. Then under her we have the same types of orders. So pretty cool. I really like things like this in the codexes. That's why I prefer the codexes rather than just using the app to get the Warhammer rules for tabletop, because the books include things like this, and because I'm just a massive nerd, I adore bits of information and world building about different factions like this. So let's move on to our next page. Okay, let us continue. That was a lot of information. So next up we have the Beacons of Faith chapter. So we will read the first little paragraph. It says, Heroes and Martyrs. It is a cornerstone of the Adeppta Sororitas martial culture to revere saints and martyrs, and to strive to live up to the example set by the matriarchs. A willingness to suffer and die for the cause is prevalent in every one of their orders, and thus their ranks produce many storied champions. So essentially, yeah, they look up to their own heroes, just like everyone else does in Warhammer. Each faction has their own heroes, and they all strive to die heroically and, you know, become a martyr, become a hero. It's almost very similar to the Death Corps of Krieg, how, you know, they look up to people who sacrificed themselves and died, and, you know, want to, they don't want to just die, but they want to die if, you know, it means something, or to become a martyr. Very cool, and I just like seeing little bits of similarities between different factions that I love. So, let's move on. So now we are starting with some of our characters. The Adeppta Sororitas has some really great named characters, both in the lore and on the tabletop. If you have watched my Adeppta Sororitas army video, some of these names are probably going to sound a little bit familiar. But yeah, let's get started with Morven Val. Okay, so this is Morven Val, and we have quite a lot to read about her. But first off, we have this great picture here of her in her power armor. If she is as big as her model, would lead you to believe, her power armor is absolutely massive, which is crazy. But yeah, apart from the picture, let's just dive straight into reading. So let's just start from the top. So, Morven Val, Abbess Sanctorum of the Adeppta Sororitas. As Abbess Sanctorum, it is Morven Val who commands the Order's militant. Stern and uncompromising, she refuses to direct their crusades and holy wars from afar and instead leads from the front, dispensing the Emperor's retribution at the end of her own weapons. I always like characters and leaders who, lead from the front rather than, sending in lower ranking people to do it. So, though youthful of countenance, her features unblemished by the scars of war, Morven Val carries herself with the stern confidence of a born leader. Her devotion to the God Emperor and protecting the sanctity of the Imperial Creed has been tested beyond question. She is the figurehead to whom the sisterhood looks for spiritual and martial guidance. A true exemplar of Alicia Dominice's eternal knowledge. I apologize if I said that name wrong. She has demonstrated a flair for command and skill at arms that match any of the Imperium's mightiest champions. Her responsibilities extend far further than a single campaign or war zone. However, as the guardian of the Imperial Creed, she must oversee the defense of the Imperial faith across all of humanity's territories, a terrible burden for a single being to bear. Morven Val's elevation to Abbess Sanctorum took place in the wake of tragedy. The opening of the Great Rift saw huge regions of the galaxy riven by warp storms. Her predecessor's voyage ship was stricken by such an empiric cataclysm while en route to Ophelia 7. While en route from Ophelia 7 to Holy Terror, leaving the Adeppta Sororitas without leadership in its hour of greatest need. As the rumors after effects of the Noctis Materia receded, and the scale of the bloodshed and chaos was revealed, it swiftly became clear to the ecclesiarchy that a new abbess was desperately needed. Of those put forward as prospective replacements, Morven Val was by far the youngest and most inexperienced, a Celestian superior of the Order of the Argent Shroud. She had earned the approval of her order by fighting with exemplary bravery and dedication against the tides of the ravening foes unleashed upon the galaxy by the recent events. Ever driven by the intrigue and compelling agenda, the hierarchy of the ecclesiarchy saw in the young warrior an opportunity. Surely one so politically inexperienced as Val would be easily manipulated, allowing the ecclesiarchy's leadership to exert undue influence over the sisters' operations. Those who conspired to promote Val to the position of abbess would soon be disabused of these beliefs. Morven Val was embroiled in the Rockard purgation when the ecclesiarchal delegation reached her. She stood impassively before the Ministerum's representatives as they presented their declaration through ostentatious ceremony and archaic ritual. Still clad in her battle-worn and fire-blackened silver power armor, Val listened in silence as the offer was made. The assembled confessors, priests, and hierarchs were shocked when the Celestian Superior requested a period of prayer to consider her response. But they had little choice but to accede to her request. For 3 days did Val seclude herself within her mission's shrine at Saint Sylvana, letting the assembled priests pace anxiously as they awaited her response. When she emerged from her reverie, Val seemed to walk taller, with even greater confidence, and possessed of a cold and stern determination that caused the clergy to bow before her. With brevity befitting a sister of the Argent Shroud, she accepted the appointment, nominating a successor to serve as canoness. Val boarded the priest's transport vessel and began her new duties. Her abrupt departure left the assembled priests, who had planned many days of ceremony and worship to mark their appointment, stunned. In the months after her arrival in Holy Terror, the newly appointed Abbess Sanctorum proved herself utterly beyond manipulation. Refusing to don ceremonial robes, she continued to perform her duties clad in full power armor. Her manner brusque, her aspect stern, her glare pitiless, she intimidated even the most senior representative of the ecclesiarchy. Disinterested in politics, Val soon turned her attention in re-establishing contact with those orders cut off by the Great Rift. Analyzing realms of data submitted by the Order's militant, Val began to redirect troops to key war zones and dispatch reinforcements to relieve besieged sanctuaries within these regions of the Imperium Sanctus, with which contact had been re-established. On Terra, the Abbess Sanctorum soon began to chafe at her inaction. She saw no reason why her sisters should fight and die while she stood idle. Even the elevator even her elevation to the status of High Lord of Terror, instigated by Robuti Gilliman himself, did little to cool her lust for battle. It was therefore no great surprise to her subordinates when Val declared herself the commander of the ecclesiastical Holy Crusade against the traitorous worlds of the Philosopher's Belt. Val had scarcely returned to Terra since. At the height of the Chardon campaign, I hope I'm saying that right, at the heart of the Chardon campaign, she led Battle Group Tarsus into their assaults upon Fathom, defeating the forces of the Lord Discontent, Akarath Zaid. I probably did not say that correctly at all. Following this triumph, the Abbess Sanctorum had a large contingent of Adeppta Sororitas warriors joined in Indomitus Crusade fleet's Secundus on its journey towards the Gorwindal subsector. Val leads by example, eschewing inspiration, oration, and chanted prayer in favor of violent action. She relies upon a command staff containing senior sisters from the Ordos Dialogus and females to deal with generals, planetary governors, and other officials, while she concerns herself with the business of war. Morven Val refuses to commit herself or her armies to unwinnable conflicts. She believes that martyrdom, while a release from duty, is not an end that should be pursued for its own sake. The rank of Abbess Sanctorum is too far important for its incumbent to recklessly throw their own life away. Val's burden can only be set aside when the last heretics, mutants, xenos, and demons have been wiped from existence. Only then will she return to the relative anonymity of her former position. Wow, that is a lot of information and really good character building. I actually did not know most of that about Val, so that's so cool, just kind of seeing her origin story and how she rose through the ranks and stuff. Really cool story, really cool character. But let us move on to our next character, and that is the ever so famous Saint Celestine. Okay, everyone, so that has been Morven Val. So now let us move on to our next character. Also, I apologize if I sound slightly different or the lighting is slightly different. It has been a few days since my last recording, when I recorded the Val section, just because I've been very, very busy. But now we are back on that art book / Codex grind. So, our next character that we are going to discuss is possibly my favorite character, or one of my favorite characters. Actually, no, sorry, my favorite character in the Adeppta Sororitas, and that is Saint Celestine herself. So first off, we have this beautiful artwork here of Saint Celestine flying above a battlefield. You can see that there's stuff is on fire. There's doves and everything. I mentioned at the very start that the Adeppta Sororitas, due to their faith, are actually able to manifest supernatural either abilities or events and all that, and Celestine is essentially the epitome of that. She is the one who has done the biggest, like by far the biggest supernatural event, but we will get into that as we talk about her. So let us get started. So, Saint Celestine, eternal champion of the God Emperor, sculpted wings spread wide, halo blazing, an ardent blade in hand, Saint Celestine is the embodiment of the God Emperor's might. She shines like a star amidst the smoke and fumes on the battlefield, radiating holy light. The faithful are filled with strength and courage by her presence, even as heretics recoil in terror. I actually do not blame the heretics, and for once I never thought I would say this, I kind of feel bad for the heretics if they are up against Celestine. So, of Saint Celestine's life before she was declared a living saint, very little is known. She is believed that she was a Sister Repentia of the Order of Our Martyred Lady, one of the many warriors who fell in battle against the heretics of the Palatine Schism. But after her body was cleansed of the blood and filth of the battle, she rose once again, standing flawless before the faithful in attendance. Celestine was thereafter hailed as a Palatine Crusades figurehead. Inspired by her zeal, the armies of the Imperial Creed scoured the system not only of the traitors, but of every being deemed unworthy of existing upon the worlds of humanity. Inquisitor Lord Angsa, is that how you say that? The Crusades leader, sought to bring the Holy War to a conclusion upon a capital world of the Palatine sector, but Celestine insisted upon first liberating a small backwater world named Sanctus Lys. Unknown to all but her, the world was home to an ancient shrine of a fiery heart, once visited by Saint Catherine. Here, beneath a ruined altar, she revealed the entrance to a hidden crypt, descending alone down a dusty steps that none had trodden for millennia. She reached the hollowed shrine within. As first light broke, Celestine emerged from the tomb. Sorry, I lost my place. From the tomb, borne aloft by a column of divine radiance and attended by cyber cherubim and snow-white birds. She was now clad in a suit of shining golden armor, and wields a blade wreathed in sweet-scented petals. It's a blade so bright none could bear to look upon it. All who dared to meet her eyes were struck down by equal parts adoration and infernal terror. After the apotheosis, the Lord Anxar and his retinue of Thorian inquisitors declared Celestine a living saint. In the remainder of the campaign, her divine presence invested the armies of faith invested the armies of the faith with great favor, and hundreds of thousands of heretics were purged by her army. Many of the faithful were fearful in her presence, for to stand before her was to submit to the judgment of one whose example could never be emulated. Celestine has fought the faithless over long centuries and in all corners of the Imperium. Many times it has appeared that she has been struck down in battle, but whether she has fallen, she will eventually rise once more to continue the eternal fight against the Imperium's foes. Each time the living saint rises from the dead, she appoints a pair of champions to fight at her side, known as the Geminine Superior. These warriors possess a portion of Celestine's grace and lay down their lives to protect her. Should one or both of her attendants fall in battle, Celestine selects replacements from her most virtuous sisters of the Order Militant. It is hard to predict where Celestine and her Gemini Superior will appear, but wherever they go, the Emperor's will is made manifest. The next section is called Against the Black Legion. So, when Abaddon the Despoiler's 13th Black Crusade crashed through the Eye of Terror on a collision course with Cadia, Saint Celestine appeared at the head of the Adeppta Sororitas host, thought lost to the warp centuries prior. Though she could not save Cadia from its fate, Celestine guided a hand of a band of survivors, including the Archmagos Dominus Belisarius Call, Inquisitor Greyfax, proving particularly pivotal in the purging of Hivesprawl Dontoria, whose citizens and defenders had been transformed into shambling hordes of poxwalkers. The subsequent violence saw the entire Hivesprawl set aflame, turning it into a beacon of faith for the defenders of Vigilus and a symbol of defiance against Abaddon the Despoiler's invading forces. The latest reports from Vigilus speak of increasingly intensive chaos assaults, and the planet's fate appears grim. Were it not for the presence of Celestine, however, Vigilus would have surely fallen long ago. So that is what it says about Saint Celestine. Really good description and really good introduction to the character in case you're not familiar with her. Just as a fun little fact about Saint Celestine that it doesn't say in the book here about her, is that every time she dies and is reborn, she loses a part of her memory. and she has to go into a deep, dark realm to try and retrieve the memory. But that is terrifying. Like, you keep coming back to life every time you lose a part of yourself. If any of you have read A Song of Ice and Fire, but there's a character who suffers a very similar fate where they are continuously resurrected, but each time they lose a part of their memory and they end up essentially forgetting who they are entirely. And Saint Celestine kind of reminds me of him. But yeah, so that is Celestine for us. Great character, as you can see here. This is her. I already pointed all that out. But let's move on to our next character. And that character is Ephrael Stern. So before we begin, let's just look at the artwork. So we have this great picture here of her in her battle gear, walking through some fire with her sword. She is not wearing a helmet, and she has the white hair accustomed to the Sororitas. Great little picture, but let us dive into her story. I'm trying to zoom it in a little bit so that you guys are able to read it at your own pace, in case I am going too slow, but I'm trying to go a bit slower just so it's a bit more relaxing. So, Ephrael Stern, the Kiganal of the Bloody Tears, I probably pronounced that. Ephrael Stern has fought insurrectionists, mutants, abominations, and the warp and xenos. Monstrosities beyond count in defense of the Imperial Creed. Her skill at arms is beyond question, though accusations of heretical powers manifesting in her presence have led her and her Aldari comrade Kaiganal to an existence as nomadic outcast warriors. So that is cool. One thing about Stern is that she has a Eldari companion, which is quite rare for not just a human in the Imperium of Man, but in the Adeppta Sororitas, to have a Xeno best friend is kind of wild. The Thriceborn, the Demonifuge, Holy Savior, and Heretical Witch, all of these terms have been used to describe Ephrael Stern, though she once served as a Sephirim of the Order of a Martyred Lady. Sephirim are units that use jump packs or jetpacks. Records of her existence have been purged from the sanctuary in which she once trained and prayed. If any survive, then perhaps they can be found within the Covenant Sanctorum's deepest shrines, or in the personal archives of one of the Inquisitors of the Ordo Hereticus. Long before arousing the suspicion of the Inquisition, Stern was a part of the expedition to discover the fate of the Lost Order Pronotos, one of the planet Paranaris. Stern discovered the presence of the greater demon of Slanesh. The demon had captured several hundred sisters of the Lost Order and fused them into a flesh prison. The sisters who formed this monstrosity, named the Screaming Cage by the demon's followers, suffered endless agonies. Yet despite the torturous misery of their existence, the fusing of their mortal forms had also been combined and amplified their faith. Stern was overwhelmed and slain by the demon's minions. Yet her sacrifice stirred the sisters of the Screaming Cage to life. They channeled their collective spiritual energy into her broken body in a fight to act of faith. Amid the blaze of the body's light, Stern was reborn, and with power vested in her by the demon's victims, she obliterated the malefic beings and its followers. Since her return, Stern has displayed many strange and seemingly supernatural powers.
that have drawn suspicion in certain quarters of the Imperium. She appears stronger and faster than any of her sisters, can, can unleash bolts of holy judgment upon the foes. When slain, has resurrected to life, so kind of similar to Celestine. Uh, that she keeps the company of Xenos in the form of the outcast Aldari, Harlequin, Kaiganal. Oh, I forgot to mention that he's not just an Aldari, he's a bloody Harlequin to boot. Further condemns her in the eye of the Inquisition, while the purpose behind her alliance with the alien warrior remains closely guarded secret. With this help, Sturm has visited the Black Library and made contact with the Ayanari, agents of the Order Malleus, Hereticus, and Xenos have all attempted at one time to apprehend or kill Sturm. However, some amongst the Inquisition take the view that that Stern may well be a force of purity, an Emperor-sent savior who will prove crucial in the defense of the Imperium. Despite the mistrust and suspicion that follow her, Stern has fought her distinction in many war zones, most recently in the Nephilim subsector, where her incredible abilities have remained undimmed by the effects of the Pariah Nexus. This has made her a thorn in the side of the Ascended Necrons, with the Master Cryptech Illuminatus Cesas, in particular, frustrated by his inability to understand the origins of her power or to develop an effective counter to it. So Stern is a very controversial figure. She is definitely effective and definitely is doing her job, but she keeps company with Xenos. She has supernatural powers that don't necessarily seem angelic, but she uses them to fight for the Emperor, so it's kind of a tough situation, which is why she's one of my favorite characters, because she is so complex as a character. I really like her. Now, one thing that it kind of mentions but brushes over is the fact that her nickname, or a name that has been put upon her, is the Demonifuge. And what this essentially means is she is given this because she is able to defeat her foes with her psychic abilities alone, which is usually a massive no-no in the Imperium. If you were to do that as like a standard citizen, you would be burned at the stake. And you would be burned at the stake by Sororitas members to boot. So, yeah, she is a great character and a great character to play on the tabletop. I always run Stern in my army, regardless of who I am actually, or what my army actually is. I always try and run Celestine too, but Stern is my go-to girl. So, our last character that we are going to be mentioning is Junith Eureka. So we see her here on the bottom, and I'm not sure if we can zoom in, but we see her here, and she is on the back, she is riding in this massive winged palanquin. Really cool. I really like her design. It's just very different, But yeah, let's get into her character. Let me just zoom out so you guys can read too. So there's actually quite a lot to say about her. So Junith Eureka, voice of the martyred. Junith Eureka sweeps into battle wreathed in holy fire and holding high the mace of castigation. Riding within the pulpit of the Saint Holine's Basilica, she hovers across the battlefield upon thumbing waves thrumming waves of holy energy. The pulpit's heavy flamers swivel seemingly of their own volition, seeking out the heretical and the faithless, immolating them without mercy.
Okay, so now let's move on to our fourth and final character, Juno Theorita. Now, just before I get started, I just want to address one thing. I am recording this the next day from when I recorded Stern. When I was recording Stern and Celestine, I was extremely sleep deprived, and as such, my reading ability was bad to the point that I was stumbling, making mistakes, and all that kind of stuff. So I have since gotten a good amount of sleep for me. So I got 2 hours of sleep, which is like a godsend for me. So I am much more awake now, and I will be able to provide a better reading experience. So let's dive right in. So Junith Theorita, voice of the martyred. Junith Theorita sweeps into battle wreathed in holy fire and holding high the mace of castigation. Riding with the pulpit of St. Holian's Basilica, she covers across the battlefield upon thrumming waves of holy energy. The pulpit's heavy flamers swivel seamlessly. The pulpit's heavy flamers swivel seemingly on their own accord, seeking out the heretical and the faithless, immolating them without mercy, but rather focused her rage against mankind's enemies, while cleaving to the absolute belief that the Emperor watched over his people. By the time she joined the ranks of the Order of Our Martyred Lady, Eurita was already being watched with interest by its then canoness Maria Somnation. Eurita's talent for inspirational address, intensity of faith, her somewhat maniacal fondness for the prodigious skill with flamer weapons, all had been noted by her drill abbots and suggested great things to come. Somnation was not disappointed. Sister Eurita took the role of retributor. A retributor is like a sister of battle with a heavy weapon, with fervor, becoming both the inspirational linchpin for her squad and a truly ferocious warrior with her anointed heavy flamer. Hundreds of sisters died as the structure caved in, and Somnation was among them. It was then that the wounded Eurytus scaled the stair leading to the miraculously untouched pulpit from which St. Holian had once preached. Fire rained down all around her, but neither shot nor shell touched the pulpit as Eurita delivered a blistering address to her surviving sisters, every eye lit with faith renewed. And with a mighty cry, the warriors of the Order of Our Martyred Lady swept onwards to a costly but decisive victory. Eurita ascended to replace Maria the next day. Appointed by the grace of the Emperor himself, the pulpit which Juno Theorita broadcasted her fiery invective was removed from Ceto to transform it into a mobile platform. The Canoness Superior has ridden to war in this blessed pulpit ever since. Eurita has since been deployed to Sangua Terra to marshal its defenders and holds back the forces of chaos. Arriving upon the benighted world, the Canoness Superior found a battle-scarred hellscape overrun by demons and traitors. The full extent of their fiery oration, unwavering faith, and martial wrath will be required if Sangua Terra is to be saved. So she is an extremely skilled warrior, she was personally taken under the wing of her superior, and if anything, the loss of her superior just bolstered her morale to continue on fighting, which is really, really cool. So, similar to how we did things in the Astra Militarum Codex video, after reading about those 4 incredible women, I thought that I would show you guys the miniatures that I have for them, because all of them are in fact playable on the tabletop. So we will start off with Val. So this is her here. As you can see, her power armor is massive. Even for power armor standards, not just Sororitas power armor. She wields this amazing blade, and yeah, I think she's so cool. I don't know if you can make it out, but that's like her tiny little head poking out of this massive power suit, and personally, I just think that looks pretty funny, honestly. But on the tabletop, she is an absolute force of nature. She is so powerful. It's crazy. Next up is probably everyone's favorite, or at least my favorite, miniature in my Sororitas army, and that is Saint Celestine. So this is her here. I'm not going to spend too much time on each of the miniatures because we just read all about them. But this is her here with her wings and her sword. I painted her wings this kind of red that then goes into orange. Just for something different, and honestly, I really like how it turned out. I know most people paint her wings either blue or white to kind of look more angelic, but I don't know. I think this just looks really, really good. Next up, we have Stern, easily the smallest of the miniatures, but by no means does that mean that she is the weakest. She is incredibly powerful and has an incredible model. As you can see, she has her sword in her hand. She's jumping down. Even her hair is being affected by the wind as she's jumping down. So they really went above and beyond with this model. Really cool. She was actually the first named figure, named miniature that I bought for my Sororitas army. So I have a very sentimental connection with this mini. And last but definitely not least is Junith. So this is her here in her, I don't know what the proper term is, carriage. But yeah, really cool. I really like the eagle design on it. Looks extremely nice, even on the back. And then from the back, you can see that there's steps to lead up to where she stands, and you can see her. Let me move in. You can see her here. So she has some flames coming off the back of her armor. Very reminiscent of the cover of this Codex, now that I think about it. But yeah, those are the miniatures. I just thought that, again, in case you're listening or watching this and you don't know any of these characters, that I would show you their miniatures. So anyway, let us get back to the book. Okay, so let us move on. So next is the Holy Orders, and then we have the Orders Militant. However, everyone, this is going to be it for this video. So thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this. I did initially plan on making this a 2-part series similar to the Astra Militarum Codex video. However, I was looking at the length of the clips, and I think it's easier to split it into 3 parts. So once I am done wrapping this up, I am going to immediately begin recording part 2 and part 3. And yeah, so again, thank you so much for watching. Your viewership means the world to me. My name is Crimson, and I hope you have a good evening, and I'll see you guys in the next one.